We are sidelined because we are poor. I've been unemployed for 6 months, and I'm in a miserable situation. I eat at soup kitchens, we have sickness, we have depression.
We ask for money. Without money, what can I do? Should I steal? I'm a Christian. Christians don't steal.
We haven't seen the fallout. We're still falling. Where would it end?
Fear. Fear.
This bench is what Andreas and Michalis call home. Andreas lost his job as a builder when the work dried up because of the financial crisis. He joined Michalis, whose house had burned down, among the growing number of Greeks sleeping rough. Their worldly possessions are in these bags, a radio and poetry books. They're philosophical.
What can I say about the situation? Greece never dies. The Greeks, however, will die. That's how it is. That's the situation.
I want to take a bath. Where? In the sea? No home, no bath. There's no good life.
Unemployment is at 26%, and 5 years of austerity has brought deepening poverty. Now, the punishing EU bailout deal that has been voted through Parliament is set to bring further tax rises and spending cuts. Charities, churches, businesses and individuals have been filling a gap in government services. Every day, people from this social kitchen, some of them homeless themselves, come together to cook a communal meal, welcoming others to join, offering friendship and hope.
I believe that if we take each other's hands, there will be solidarity and we're going to succeed. I'm a member of this human chain, which I think can make us stronger so that we will be able to stand on our own 2 feet.
Greece's new poor come from all walks of life.
Peas with cooked potatoes.
Koteni Kizuli used to give away leaflets on where to go for help, but never thought she'd need it herself.
I have properties, but I don't have any income. And you cannot survive with property. You can't cut off from the wall. You can't convert the bricks into food.
I'm unemployed like many Greeks. That's the thing. And the money is getting less and less. And sometimes I come to these people. I just met them some days and the food is really good. So why not?
The first 2 years it's very difficult, very hard. You can't sleep, you can't rest because you're afraid, you sleep with one eye open.
Andreas and Michalis say they see more and more people living on the streets. They survive, but with further cuts on the way, they've little hope for the country's future or their own.
Capital controls, not something animals should have to worry about. But that's the reality for these residents of Athens' Attica Zoo. The zoo's founder, Jean-Jacques Lasieux, has requested exemption from the controls, which have left him unable to pay for imported feed. As yet, he's had no response from the Greek Finance Ministry. As his stocks deplete further, he's unable to replace them.
We consume about 50 tons of frozen fish per year for our dolphins and seals and our penguins. So this comes from Holland, and it will have to be paid cash in advance. Right now we can't do anything. The account is blocked. We cannot get money out of the country. We import every 3 weeks, and we're going to be out of stock in the next week.
Anteater mealworms from Britain and frozen herring from the Netherlands are among the dwindling supplies. Some foods can be replaced locally, but they would lack critical vitamins, additives and proteins.
I do hope we will get authorization to pay and get them in, because we're speaking of life and death for certain animals.
There could be relief in sight though. Barring some technical challenges, it's hoped banks will reopen on Monday after the ECB increased emergency funding for Greek lenders. NAB's Nick Parsons.
Whether it will be smooth depends on how big the lines are outside the ATMs. It still seems as though We are going to have limits on the amount that can be withdrawn and on the frequency with which those withdrawals could be made. So I think we'd have to see this very much as a partial opening.
As the queuing continues outside Greek cash points, many realise there are no quick fixes in sight.
They're killing us. Of course, it's not just me. Everybody's having it bad. Everybody. Of course, my generation have been through poverty and such. I hope our children will have a better future in 2 or 3 years from now.
But the bank's reopening won't help the zoo. Capital controls are still expected to remain in place for weeks.
A large-scale military exercise held by the U.S. Army called Jade Helm 15 is launching today. It will involve thousands of military men across 7 states. Some trainings even involve the special ops blending in with civilians. And as Alexei Orshevsky reports, lack of information on such operations has caused a bit of paranoia among local residents.
Military exercises and drills are not something uncommon, whether it's in the United States or anywhere across the world. But it's not every time that such exercises become a reason for public paranoia and even protest movements. Now, a large-scale military drill called Jade Helm 15 is launching today in 7 states, including Texas, Louisiana, Florida, and Utah. The main mission of the exercise is to train the so-called unconventional warfare in deserted and remote areas, to train soldiers how to operate in difficult conditions. It's estimated that in Texas alone, more than 1,200 military men will take part in this exercise. There will be different sorts of trainings, including nightly helicopter extraction, hostage takeovers, and even a role play modeled after the French resistance to Nazi occupation during the World War II. The level of realism sought by the planners of this exercise is so high that it's unclear now whether the troops will actually try to blend in with civilians during this training. According to a PowerPoint presentation prepared by the military organizers, some of the Jade Helm 15 participants may conduct suspicious activities, I quote, and part of their trainings and others will be wearing civilian attire and driving civilian vehicles. In several instances, the army even asked for public facilities or abandoned, let's say, hospitals to be presented to them for this exercise. But all in all, information about this particular drill is very scarce. Not a lot is known about where and how the training will be actually conducted, and this has become the reason for unease among people living in the areas. In particular, the InfoWars website recently reported that the acronym for the Helm could be the homeland eradication of local militants. Some in Texas even go as far as believing that the actual reason for these exercises is to completely militarily take over Texas. The New York Times reported that in several parts of Texas, residents were either burying some of their firearms to hide them, or to the contrary, some farmers rumored to have been buying thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition. But not only the army officials who are saying that there will be no disruptions to everyday life of citizens across the areas where the exercises are held, but also some of the local officials are saying that this is not a problem at all. One of the mayors in Texas, the mayor of the town of El Dorado, even said that the army could use his ranch in this military exercise. So strong the level of public concern has been in relation to the Jade Helm 15 military exercise that there's now even a protest movement called Counter Jade Helm, and these guys are looking to follow the military gear and to report to a special website as to how the military exercise is going. We're expecting that Jade Helm will last for at least another 8 weeks.
A shooting rampage at 2 naval facilities in Tennessee has claimed the lives of 4 U.S. Marines. The attacker, who was identified as a 24-year-old naturalized American citizen of Middle Eastern origin, also injured 3 other people, including a police officer, before he was shot dead. RT's Anya Parampil is across the story.
They've ID'd him as Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, reportedly a naturalized Kuwaiti citizen. Law enforcement officials also held a press conference this afternoon confirming some other details that had been floating around since the news broke of this shooting in the morning. They confirmed that a total of 5 people are dead as a result of shootings that took place at 2 separate locations this morning. Abdulaziz is actually among the dead. The 4 other casualties are Marines who were killed at a U.S. Navy Marine Combination Center, and officials will not confirm whether or not Abdulaziz died at his own hands or was neutralized during the incident by law enforcement. And now this all began around 10:40 a.m. local time in Chattanooga when Abdulaziz opened fire with an assault weapon at the Army National Guard Center, firing some 30 rounds into the building. That's where 1 police officer was shot in the ankle, but that individual is fortunately in stable condition and being treated at a local hospital. Law enforcement then pursued him to a second location. That was the Navy recruiting center where the 4 Marines were killed, and that's also where Abdulaziz died. Authorities say he was armed with multiple weapons and did not work at either of the targeted locations, but not much else is known about his background. Even though we know his identity, nothing is known about the motive of Abdulaziz, which is, of course, what defines the nature of the crime. And we'll continue to bring you updates as we learn them.
Well, no group has been officially linked to the shooting. It's being investigated as an act of domestic terrorism. That's according to local officials. Brian Levine from the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University told us the shooter may have been inspired by terrorist groups rather than acting on direct orders.
In cases like this, where the target is a military installation, or we saw the other week a church, the FBI is going to look at it as a potential act of domestic terrorism. And here we have someone who is a naturalized citizen who had targeted a military installation, and these installations are targeted in the folklore of this movement of Salafist jihadists, of which ISIS is a part of. This could have been a lone wolf who is in fact acting on behalf of ISIS or AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. These terrorist groups can inspire acts of terrorism without having their fingerprints and return address all over the crime scene.
He's forceful, reckless, and has a thirst for power that amounts to a reign of terror, according to a top South Korean official. North Korea's young dictator Kim Jong-un has executed 70 officials since coming to power in late 2011, says the South Korean foreign minister. By most accounts, that's shockingly more than were executed by his father, Kim Jong-il.
Unlike his father, he exhibits a ruthlessness here by his actions, by the things that he's prepared to do, that his father simply was not prepared to do, or didn't feel the need to do it. he does.
Kim even executed his own uncle and reportedly his defense minister. Human rights monitor Greg Scarlatu says the regime often uses grotesque methods.
They're executed by 50 caliber ZPU-4 anti-aircraft machine gun battery. The bodies are pulverized. There is nothing left behind.
U.S. officials tell CNN executions are Kim's way of solidifying his position. One official calls them a crude mechanism for internal control. Analysts say the purges may show that Kim feels vulnerable, but he's also sending a bone-chilling signal to those in his closest circles.
Don't mess with me. I'm the boss, and if you know what's good for you, you'll stay absolutely loyal to me.
There are even published reports that the architect of Pyongyang's new airport was executed because Kim didn't like the design.
I saw my first public execution when I was 7.
Defector Hyun-So Lee, who left while Kim's father was in power, says people have been executed over their homosexuality or their religion. CNN cannot independently verify Lee's accounts. She says people were executed by hanging, by machine gun fire, and often in front of large crowds.
Many people gathered to watch those public executions because since it is mandatory in North Korea, and then the very first line of the crowd, that should be the victims, the criminals, family members, the immediate family members, and including their relatives have to sit in the front line.
Volcanologists are keeping a watchful eye on southern Peru's Misti volcano. They say it could level the country's second-largest city of Arequipa. The Geophysical Institute of Peru's Jose Machare says the volcano is a high risk because of its proximity to Arequipa, located just 12 miles away from its base.
Even though the volcano hasn't shown signs of reactivation, periodic inspections have to be carried out, and it has to be constantly monitored to determine if at some point the volcano enters a state of unrest.
The volcano, more technically known as a stratovolcano, is built of layers of hardened lava and ash spewed from its craters. Permanent stations to monitor its seismic activities were installed in 2005. And for these specialists, taking regular temperature and emissions readings is as important as ever before.
Yesterday, America's space program took another historic leap for humankind. Today, the New Horizons team is bringing what was previously a blurred point of light into focus.